Hell Yes Life, Episode 7.
But if you have a vision, or if you have a feeling in your heart, it is my absolute conviction that you have to fulfill it. There's people out there who disagree with me, but I believe you are an intricate and you are a special part of this unique puzzle that we call the universe. And then by you living your dream, you give other people permission to live their dreams.
Welcome to the Hell Yes Life podcast, the show that helps you come alive so you can live a Hell Yes life. I'm your host, Norman Bell. Hey everybody, Norman Bell here. Welcome to the Hell Yes Life podcast. If this is your first time listening, then I say hell yes to you. Thank you for joining us. The Hell Yes Life podcast releases new episodes every Tuesday, and show notes can be found at hellyeslife.com. You can subscribe to the podcast through iTunes, Stitcher, or your favorite RSS feed. And please join the Hell Yes Life private Facebook group, which you can access from hellyeslife.com. Also, I am excited to announce our first ever Hell Yes Life contest. You can win a spot in the upcoming 6-week online Hell Yes Life boot camp, which is regularly priced at $497. To enter to win a spot in the boot camp, all you need to do is subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, leave a rating and review, and email your iTunes reviewer name and email address to hellyeslife@gmail.com. For more details, visit hellyeslife.com/contest. Now let's get into the show. Today, my guest is Peter Feysa. Now, Peter is a seminar leader, transformation coach, filmmaker, and the owner of Conquer Any Fear coaching systems. Before moving to Seattle, Peter worked as a DNA biologist at Central Washington University. He is also a film director and has made over 20 short films. He also wanted to mention he has a cat named Bob. Now, I've known Peter for the past couple of years. We met at a storytelling workshop in Vancouver, BC. We both have a love of public speaking, and we actually both competed as finalists at the Seattle-wide Toastmasters competition in 2015. Now, we've been kind of on parallel tracks ever since as we've been developing our personal development businesses. Peter is a super inspiring guy, and I know you're going to love our conversation, so let's jump right in. Hey, Peter Feysa, how's it going today?
Good, brother. How's it going, Norman?
It is going well. I'm so excited to have you on the show. Peter, are you ready to tell us about your Hell Yes life?
I'm totally ready to tell you about my Hell Yes life.
Awesome. Hey, why don't you go ahead and say, Hell Yes!
Hell yes!
There you go. Just there you go. Feel the power. Listen, so, as I've already told our listeners, you and I have known each other over the past couple of years, and it's been so exciting to I feel like we're running on kind of parallel tracks here in developing our personal growth efforts, whether it be in seminars, webinars, podcasts, and all these different areas. So it's been really exciting to, kind of be on this journey with you. I was wondering, I always like to start off by asking our guests, what is your Hell Yes? And so what I mean by that is, what's your passion, that thing that really makes you come alive?
Right. Thanks for asking. The thing that really makes me come alive is, I think, the one thing that also is the most challenging to me, and the thing that's really been the most challenging thing for me in my life since I was little, which is fear. I've always been stopped by fear, and I've experienced fear as a thing that is resistance. And now I'm coming to understand that fear is actually one of my greatest driving forces. It's actually the fear of failure and the fear of me failing and not doing the thing as well as I know that I'm capable of doing that really pulls the very best out of me. So that my absolute passion in life, my stand in life, without a doubt, is to help others break through any fear that stands between them and their ultimate vision in life, their dreams. And so that's the thing that gets me going. That's my passion.
Awesome. Awesome. And I'm sure, I know I can, I'm sure our listeners can really relate to fear. There's our old buddy fear that comes with us throughout our life journeys. Mm-hmm. And it's really like, one of Peter's specialties is really looking at like, how do we address that fear when it comes up in all of its different shapes and forms, right? So what about, when did you first realize that this was one of your big hell yeses, sort of helping people work through their fear?
Right. So yeah, thanks for asking. It was a few years ago, and I was well on my way to achieving my dreams in the film world, and I was completely stopped. I got out of a 14-year relationship. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I was trying to figure out how I was going to get out of that situation, and it was emotionally, energetically, spiritually, physically, everything the lowest I've ever been in my entire life, by far.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was the dip. And at that moment, I wasn't really interested in helping anybody with their hell yes or their passion. I was just primarily concerned with getting myself out of this place. And I didn't know how to do it. And it came one day, it was just one fateful day that I was out to dinner with my dad. Do you mind if I go into this story?
Go ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead.
All right, let's rock and roll. So I'm single. I didn't really know what I was going to do with my life. And, I'm out to dinner with my dad, and I'm just sitting there with my father, and I'm looking at him and he's looking at me, and we're having dinner. And I know I've told you this before, but across from me was this beautiful young woman. And I had this huge connection with her. She was looking at me and I was looking at her, and we smiled at each other. I was like, holy crap, here's a woman who's actually showing interest in me. She's beautiful. She looks like she's fairly intelligent. Telling these things. And I was like, I really like this girl. And throughout the dinner, I'm looking at her and we're stealing glances at each other. And then at some point, her mom and her sister get up and they go to the bathroom. And at the exact same time, my father gets up and he goes to the bathroom. And it's just her and me. And she smiles and I'm smiling at her. She's looking at me, and it's like one of those things where she's like, it's time for you to get up and come and ask me what my name is and introduce yourself. And I kind of got that. So I was like, okay, I will. And I got up and my heart started racing. And because one of my biggest fears was talking to beautiful women. and so I'm walking towards her and I'm smiling and she's smiling and I'm nervous. My hand's shaking, my heart's beating. And then I just pass her right up and I go right into the bathroom. And I'm thinking, God, Peter, what are you doing? I'm looking straight in the mirror and I'm like, Peter, what are you doing? And I just said, okay, Peter, go out there, man. Go get her phone number, do something, just get out there. And I said, fine. And so I opened the door and I went right down the hallway and I turned and I went to her booth and she was gone. Exactly. And so I have the courage at this point, so I'm scrambling and I go to the door to the parking lot and I'm looking out of the parking lot and she's across from the parking lot and she's getting into her car and she drove away. And it was, and I don't say this lightly, it was the worst night of my life. And I was just sitting there and I said, what am I going to do? I felt absolutely helpless. And later on that night, I was mortified. And I was mortified because I realized for the first time, and it was just simply because of the contrast of how I was feeling and how I was feeling before, I was enraged at myself. I was ashamed. I was humiliated. And I was experiencing myself as a total and complete coward. And so I realized that I had, it's like the old saying, how you're doing anything is how you're doing everything. Mm-hmm. And it's just like the old cliche, I was looking at my life and I was looking at all the moments that I just sort of let slip through my fingers. I was looking at the life that I was leading right now or at that moment. And I was like, I am absolutely consumed by fear. And I don't mean the kind of fear that you have when you're holding a snake or with a spider. I'm talking about the sneaky kind, the kind that is so subtle that you don't know it's there. It's the kind that talks you out of talking to a girl or a guy that you're interested in. It's the subtle fear that talks you out of starting that business with that idea that you know you want, or that idea that you know would be successful if you took action. It's that thing that prevents you from living a hell yes life. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's where it all started, man. And so that night I made a vow. I said, this is it. From here on out, I will never, ever let another moment like that ever slip through my fingers. And it was in that moment of decision. And that's the thing. Decision is the thing that causes your destiny. And that day I made a decision, like incision. I cut away anything else that wasn't related to me living my dreams. Mm. And so, and that's when Conquer Any Fear happened. That's when my whole movement happened. And it didn't start with me just saying, hey man, I want to help other people. It was literally like, I want to be able to cure my fear so I can live my life. Mm-hmm. Because I knew that, Norman, I knew the strategies. I knew the plans. I was a self-help addict. You know, if you're going to go to Barnes and Noble, man, I would be in the self-help section just reading all day with a cup of coffee. Mm-hmm. Oh but
yeah, I'd be right there with you now.
Yeah,
yep.
You totally would be. But I was missing the biggest component in my life, which was, how do you overcome that fear? That fear that just stops you before you even start. And so the last 4 years now, I've dedicated my life to really understanding the psychology of fear and how to create that champion mindset so you can take action towards the things in life that we really know we want and that we deserve. Mm-hmm. That's all started,
awesome,
brother.
Peter.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, who can't relate to that story? I personally, unfortunately, I can relate all too well to that story. But you know, and fear shows up in all different places. So listeners, Hell Yes Lifers out there, your fear may show up in relationships. It may show up in your business. It may show up in, across the spectrum, right? But we can all relate to that feeling of regret, of something that we wanted to do and we let fear stand in our way. And so I really respect what you're doing, Peter, in trying to help people address that fear and overcome the fear. I mean, of course, your website is called conqueranyfear.com. So let's talk a little bit about a success that you've had then in recent years since that day. So this kind of launched you on a journey to, really look at your own fears so then you could help other people with theirs. What was a time that you had where you felt like, wait, I think I might be getting somewhere with this, whether it was like a personal victory or, something that you did towards your business or something else that stands out in your mind as being a success?
Absolutely. Thank you, man. Well, it's really important to note that, just like you said, everybody has their own specific fear. And the thing is that you're never going to get away from it. And actually, the bigger the fear, like whatever that thing that you want to do, the bigger the fear behind it, the bigger the reward that's just on the other side. As a matter of fact, whatever big thing that we want, I guarantee there's just like this big chunk of fear, however that's going to show up for you. For me, I wanted to be a public speaker, but I was absolutely mortified when I went on stage to speak in front of people. And I was like, well, why am I given this huge, massive dream of being on stage in front of people if my biggest fear is speaking in front of people? So that's what I did. Within a 5-month period, I faced every single one of my fears. I started public speaking, and that's actually how you and I met, my friends. Yes. To all of your listeners out there, I just wanted to share with them, Norman is a very, very talented man. He's not only funny, but he commands a crowd. And if you haven't seen Norman speak, and if he's having an event here pretty soon, and I think that you have to go. So anyway, that's a little Norman plug.
Well, thank you, Peter.
But Oh, you're welcome, my friend. What I discovered is that if you have a huge fear, you got to face it. So I faced it, and I went on stage and I learned how to speak, and I won 3 speaking competitions within 5 months. And it was mortifying, but in the end, I persevered, as anybody will persevere if they face their fear. I had a big fear of making films, and then within that summer, I made 3 films. 1 film traveled the world, and I won a bunch of film festivals. And the last thing is I created the business of my dreams. It's a business idea that I had for a while, and I thought, man, I wouldn't be able to create that business because how am I going to make money at it? It's like that fear. And as soon as I created it, not only did it start making money, it started supporting me. And this is all in a matter of months. And I went, oh my, there's like this little light clicked in my brain. I was like, if I can do this with these things, what can I do it with other things? I thought I discovered this secret. And that's when I started to conquer any fear, because if I could do it, anybody could do it.
That's powerful. So you had this kind of breakthrough period, right? So you were afraid to do all these things, public speaking and filmmaking and so forth. And then, suddenly you're on the other side of this and you're super productive. So for those people that are out there that are listening to this and they're on the previous side, right? They've got these ideas in their head. They want to take action on it, but for some reason they're not moving forward. Is there, and no pressure here, but is there anything, any starting tip that you could pass on to them? Like what was it that helped you with that breakthrough?
Absolutely. I would say the very thing that I would say the thing that you have to do in the beginning, and it requires a certain amount of courage, is something that you wouldn't think that you would have to do. And if you just did this one thing above anything else, this is the thing that's going to see you through it. And that is to make the commitment, make the decision, and to decide that you're going to do it and you're going to get there no matter what. Mm-hmm. It's when we have a backup plan. It's when we don't burn the bridge. It's when we have one foot in one place and one foot in the other. We allow ourselves to retreat. I've done this so many times. I'm sure you've done this too. People out there could probably relate, where it's like, man, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to have a plan B, because if it doesn't work out, I'll be able to do this. Or, I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to move to LA, but if it doesn't work out after a year, I'm going to call it quits. You have this backup plan. And the thing is that you can't fully commit if you have a backup plan like that. And if it's in your heart, and a lot of people are like, well, you might not agree with me, and certainly this isn't for everybody. But if you have a vision, or if you have a feeling in your heart, it is my absolute conviction that you have to fulfill it. There's people out there who disagree with me, but I believe you are an intricate and you are a special part of this unique puzzle that we call the universe. And then by you living your dream, you give other people permission to live their dreams.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about this.
My advice.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead, Peter.
I was just going to say, burn the boats. Don't have a plan B. Just go for it. And when you do that, and when you decide and you fully commit, that's when magic happens. Goethe, he has a quote that says, boldness has genius, power, and magic to it. And we have to be bold.
Yeah. I'm going to actually take your cue there. And this is something that I've said to myself, but I'm going to go ahead and say it right now to my audience here, is that my goal that I've set for myself about this podcast is that I will put out one podcast a week for this year. So that's 52 podcasts at the least. I mean, if it turns into more than that, great. But 52 podcasts. And at the end of the year on December 31st or January 1st, whatever, that's when I get to decide whether to continue with it, but not before that, because I have also been a victim of my whims and my emotions from day to day. I'll have a great idea. I'll be excited about it for a week or two, and then I'll lose that excitement and I'll jump on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. Well, I feel like I'm at a point that you're talking about, Peter, where it's like I'm making a decision to and I'm committing to doing this. And yeah, it feels good. It feels good when you put it out there. So there it is, Hell Yes Lifers, 52 episodes. You can count on me to be here all year long, at the very least.
Hell yes.
Hell yes. So now tell me a little bit about, tell me a little bit more. So again, Hell Yes Lifers, I was helping Peter out last week. I was a privileged member of Peter's dream team that he had people helping him with an all-day live seminar that he put on. I think it was the first of its type of that length. Am I right, Peter?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe tell us a little bit about that seminar and what that experience was like for you, and a little bit about what you covered.
Hell yes. Well, first of all, thank you, Norman. For all those for your listeners out there, Norman actually opened the seminar with his speaking abilities, which really charged the audience. So thank you. The seminar was created or decided 3.5-4 months previous, because I didn't have any plan at all to create a seminar. My seminar was going to be created in September of 2017. But at that moment, I was doing, I committed myself to a goal for my Conquer Any Fear business that had nothing at all to do with my ultimate vision. And I realized, oh my God, am I doing this out of fear? Am I avoiding my ultimate seminar out of fear? And I discovered, I was like, yes, I am. And that's okay. It's like, I was in fear again. It's so sneaky. So what I did is I created a seminar that was reminiscent of the seminar that I really always wanted to do, but I was too afraid to do. So I committed to this big vision, and it was in the act of committing to this big vision that all the resources then pulled together for this thing. And one of the big takeaways from this seminar that I'll have for the rest of my life was this huge learning experience, and it's this, is that when we create a giant goal and we commit to this goal, we have to become new. We have to learn new skill sets in order to achieve this goal. And it's in the making of this huge goal that we transform. And I discovered that even though I was taking action towards my ultimate vision the last few years, it wasn't as bold as I knew that I could potentially commit to and be. And this thing was bigger than anything that I've done previous. And therefore, it pulled the very best out of me up until the very, very last moment. And I said, this is what I have to do consistently with my life from here on out. It was a huge takeaway.
Yeah, and listener, Hell Yes Lifers, this event was, it wasn't just like your run-of-the-mill event. I mean, Peter's connected in the film world, so he had, you can tell us the specific details, but how many camera people did you have there, and how many sound people? It was like music, there was film, there was lighting. It was like an amazing production. It was kind of would it be fair to say there's maybe a Tony Robbins style event with music and so forth. And I thought you did a great job. You really just brought it, and it was very inspiring.
Oh, thank you, man. Yes, it is, and it was, and for sure. I think Tony takes it to the next level. He creates an event with it. But the seminar that I did before that, the seminars in the talks that I gave before that, was just me talking in front of people. But what I secretly in the back of my mind always wanted to do is to have lights, is to have the cameras, is to have music, and to, create sort of this cathartic emotional event for the audience. But I was like, oh man, I'll do that someday. And so when I committed to it, I was like, okay, here we go. And so we had 4 camera people, we had 2 sound engineers, we had a lighting designer, and of course, picking the theater, picking the actual event space, and all of it came together, and the people came together. Norman, you came forward. But it's just like that old thing, build it and build it. And what was the thing? It's from
if you build it, they'll
Dreams.
come. Yeah.
Build it. Yes. If you build it, they will come. And
Yes.
so man. So that's how it was created.
So awesome. And it's, it's just one of those things I can just imagine it just keep getting better and better the more you do it. And I was wondering if you could, we mentioned, there's like great exercises we were able to do, dancing, really high powered music. But then a lot of great stories too. And one of the ones that I thought it was really useful. You said that sometimes you like to read failure stories. And what you mean by that is not where somebody failed and went, oh no, oh, never mind, but they failed and then they kept going. Right. And you had a few of those, but the one that stuck out in my mind was about Walt Disney. Now, whatever you might think about Walt Disney, I have mixed feelings about Disney princesses and all that now, but to hear this story about how Walt Disney got started was a real eye opener. I wonder if you could kind of share an abbreviated version of that story, Peter.
Oh, you bet. Yes. And just like you said, Norman, it's really important to not get sort of confused by what we see as an image of a high achiever. Because when we see that image of a high achiever and we're only seeing their success, we disassociate ourselves from their humanity. And as we know, when you're succeeding towards something or taking action towards something, you inevitably fail. And you fail again and again and again. But it's the difference between failure or moving forward, of taking action and adjusting your approach until you get the thing. And that's what distinguished Walt Disney. A lot of people see him and they see the castle and they see Disneyland and Disney World. And of course, it's undeniable. You see the merchandising tsunami that has swept the entire universe for the past 60 plus years. But it all started when he was a teenager. He came back from Europe and his father wanted to go to the factory. He's like, Walt, you should go into the factory and get a job. And he said, he's like, my dream is every single night he went to go and he saw a movie. And at the beginning of every single movie, as you know, there's a cartoon. And he says, I can do that better. And it all started at that moment, his vision. He's like, I see the potential in this medium and I can do it better. And so he went to the library and he got a book on how to animate, literally got a camera from his boss, and he was making cartoons day and night on the weekends. And he says, I'm just going to do this. So he got an animation crew, yet his cartoons failed. He lost everything and he had to declare bankruptcy. And he said, man, I believe in this vision so much. He had nothing. He was literally eating out of a can of beans in his empty office with a cardboard suitcase with 2 shirts. And he went to Hollywood. He inspired people to work with him, including his brother Roy. And he got these animators together and they started making these cartoons about Oswald the rabbit. And he was putting all his money in there and it was all taken away from him. The distributor took away his cartoons. They said, we own the rights to these cartoons. They took away his animators, and he was left with nothing except for a massive amount of debt and massive amount of heartbreak. Now, he was on the verge of a second bankruptcy. And any normal person would say, I don't know about this, I'm going to stop. But he said, I feel my vision. So he said, I'm going to take massive action towards my vision. So he started working with his one animator they had left. And he was working on, guess what animation he was working on?
I'm going to go with Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse. He was pissed. He was inspired, but he was really angry. He turned his sadness into anger and he says, I'm going to make this happen no matter what. He made 1 Mickey cartoon. It failed. 2 Mickey cartoons failed. And then he said, man, I got to do something different. So he put sound to it, and his brother and everybody else are like, don't do it. It's going to be a failure. Sound is a passing fad. And he said, no, I'm going to do it because I believe in it. I'm a visionary. And so he did it. And he shopped it around to theater after theater after theater for months and months and months. Nobody would take it until finally one theater took it. And they showed the film. And of course, the rest is history. The theater went ballistic. They begged the receptionist to play it again. And literally within months, Mickey Mouse swept the world, without exaggeration. There was over 1 million Mickey Mouse fans. Within a year, he had 200 animators. He was this huge studio, churning out cartoon after cartoon after cartoon. And any normal person would stop right there. They're, it's not my ultimate vision, but I'm making money. I have a lot of animators, right? This is good. And that's where most people stop. And he said, nope, I have an ultimate vision. And so that's what he did. He continued on his ultimate vision, and he said, what's never been done before? A feature animation film. And not just with like corny gags and violent humor like other cartoons, where he's like, we're going to make this a story. And we're going to use real people, real actions. We're going to create emotion, because he says we make people laugh, but how do you test the truth of art is when you make people cry. And people's like, we can't do that. He says, we're going to do that. So what he did is he chose Snow White in the Seven Dwarfs as his first. And of course, his brother was like, don't do it. Close friends are like, don't do it. But he committed to it. And he enrolled and he inspired all of the animators to work. And to really work. I mean, to work 15-hour days, like in the heat. They were dripping sweat over the animation cells. And some of the animators were literally losing their sight looking at because they were drawing all day and they never had a day off. This went for 3 years. The animators were studying real life animals that were being brought into the studio, real life people and how they moved and how they danced, because this had never been done before. It was completely new. They knew where they were going, but they didn't know how to get there. And pretty soon he was behind on all his payments to Bank of America, of course, banks coming after him. And he went over budget 6 times. He was almost on the verge of having a second nervous breakdown. But he continued, and they tried to rush it. He said, this can't be rushed. It was 10 months to the debut. They hadn't even shot one animation cell.
Yeah.
But of course, they worked and they worked and they worked. And then finally, the night of the premiere, and it was in Hollywood, and everybody came to see Disney's Folly, because in Hollywood at that moment, everybody thought it was going to be a complete disaster, including a lot of the people at the Disney studio. And so he was wearing his tux. He went into the theater and was waving hi to everybody, but he was a nervous wreck. And Clark Gable and all the Hollywood elite were there, and they were wearing their tuxes and their gowns, and they were all into the theater. It was packed. And as the lights went down, he was gripping his wife's hand so tight because he was so anxious, didn't know how he was going to hold out. This movie literally had his future in his hands. If it was a success, he would live. If it wasn't a success, he would have lost everything. And so, yeah. And it was a gamble. But when the lights went down and that first image of the castle hit the big screen, everybody gasped, because they had never, ever seen anything like that before. And as soon as the queen was on the screen, everybody was hissing. And as soon as the 7 dwarves were on the screen, everybody was howling with laughter, having a great time. But still, he wasn't convinced, because the one scene that was going to put everything on the line was just around the corner. The scene that would make or break him. The scene that would test to see if he was a real artist, a real visionary. It'd put his ultimate vision to the test. And that was the apparent death of Snow White. And as soon as she was in that glass coffin, and all of the dwarves were laying down garlands of flowers, people in the audience were hushed. And then people started to weep. And Clark Gable started to weep. And when he was looking at them and he smiled at his wife, and he finally let go of her hand, because that's when he knew in his heart, and everybody in the theater knew at that point, that he had created a work of art that transcended the drawing into into a real emotional experience. And by the end of the thing, everybody stood up and they were applauding and yelling and just, he was transcended. And one person said they felt like they were in the midst of cinematic history that night. And it was because it's like one man, one person, just they sensed their vision. They didn't quite know what it was, but they sensed it. And he just had the courage to take action towards that vision from the very start. Even when he was successful, he didn't settle. And that to me, man, it's inspiring. That's why I'm really, that's what I think when people go to Disneyland and they see the castle, especially the castle, and you hear that when, the song that was from Pinocchio, you know what song it is. I'm going to ask you, Norman, do you know what song that is?
I believe I do.
What's
When You Wish Upon a Star? Is that not right? Is that right or no?
What's that?
When You Wish Upon a Star?
Oh yes, I was hoping you would sing it. Yes, When You Wish Upon a Star. That is the anthem for Disney and Disney films and Disney movement, is that it makes no difference who you are. Anything that your heart desires will come to you if you just take action towards that vision. And that's what Disney now means to me. I believe that. I believe that. I believe it because there is nobody there is no genius. There is nobody who's a special person. We're all connected to the same source. It's just, do we have the courage through the darkest of times and the best of times to follow that vision, whatever it is for you?
Thanks for sharing that story, Peter. I mean, I really love that story because, you look at somebody like Walt Disney or Disneyland or the mega Disney empire, and you just think, well, that just kind of hatched out of the ether one day. But to hear that story, again, whatever you think about Disney as a company, to hear that story about Walt Disney, for me, that really I just started to have this image in my head of like, oh, it's not about the individual steps and whether X is a success or failure. It's like, no, I've got this bigger vision that's down the road there, and I'm just going to keep going towards that until I get there. And if today I fail, then tomorrow I try again. It was just like, it's just inspiring. So anybody who's out there right now, this is especially for you. If you're listening to this and maybe you just had a failure, maybe something happened yesterday that was like, oh no, I was trying to take an action towards my hell yes, and it didn't work out. Well, today's another day. You can try again. Maybe you've got a big vision that once it finally does come to fruition, it can affect the whole world. So, okay. Well, Peter, I want to, Yeah. So I want to ask just a couple more questions before I let you go. One, I always like to ask people, you've got a lot of great stuff going on, and you're kind of, you're still developing your stuff. I think it would be fair to say you've done a lot of great stuff, but more to come, right? So what is, this is the term I like to use. What's your cringeworthy vision? And I know you know what that means, but just in case this is your first time listening, a cringeworthy vision is a vision so big that it makes you cringe just to think about sharing it with other people. So no pressure that you're about to share it with our audience here, Peter. But what's your cringeworthy vision?
Thank you, buddy. My cringeworthy vision is, I'm addicted and obsessed with self-development, and this is truly what I'm made to do. I feel that, and I feel like every moment of my life has led to this moment. But what if I was to forecast where I'm going to be in the future, is to have seminars that are happening consistently. Having my one hub seminar where people go to. It's a 3 or 4 day event. But after that, then they can go to my other events. Maybe Conquer Any Fear Extreme, or how to become a fearless leader, or how to develop yourself in this area of your life, and dive deep in those specific areas. Of course, is to have books and a series of books on a series of different topics. But one thing that I'm working on right now is my digital products, my digital programs, because I believe that, of course, there's close to 7 billion people in the world, and to be able to have access to me in my program is to be able to take and consume, digital products. Like, when you're driving in your car, you want to be able to listen to audio lessons so you can apply it to your life, like I've done with a lot of my mentors and coaches throughout the years, like Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins and Jack Canfield, Les Brown, and the list goes on. And so I just want to be able to add to that. So that's my cringeworthy vision, is to have this big conquer any fear, or however that manifests, movement. That's my cringeworthy vision. And of course, a movie playing at Sundance or winning an Oscar. That's my filmmaking. Oh yeah.
Go big.
Go big.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. Great stuff, Peter. So before we go, can you give our audience one tip or a quote or resource that has helped you that you would like to share with our listeners?
Absolutely. Well, there's one tip that I'm going to leave everybody, and that is this, is that whatever that vision is for you, I don't even know what it is, and I don't even know you necessarily, but I know this, is that you have genius within you. You have a power, latent power within you. And there's this quote by Oprah Winfrey that I love. She says, "I believe that the only courage anybody ever needs is the courage to follow your own dreams." So whatever that vision is for you, I'm inviting you to follow that thing until you fulfill it, no matter what.
No matter what. You heard it. Hell yes, Lifers. We got to do this. Okay, well, Peter, tell us where on the internet we can find you.
You bet. So if you go to www.conqueranyfear.com, you'll go to the page and you'll put in your email address. So sign up, put your email address in, you'll get some of my free content, some free videos, some free lessons, 7 tips to conquer any fears, some videos. And I'm also going to send you free weekly lessons, free weekly videos on different topics, and of course, updates on products and future seminars to keep you in the game so you can conquer any fear and live your dreams.
Awesome. Go to conqueranyfear.com, guys. Check it out and connect with Peter. Okay, well, Peter, before we go, I always like to do this with our guests. To close out our time together, I'd like to say hell yes together on the count of 3. Are you ready?
Oh, yeah.
Let's do this. 1, 2, 3. Hell yes! Oh, yeah. That was a good one. All right, Peter. We'll catch you next time,
All right,
buddy.
my brother.
Thanks for joining me for this episode of the Hell Yes Life podcast. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or your favorite RSS feed. If you like the show, please leave a rating and review. And if you want to stay connected, visit hellyeslife.com and sign up for the e-newsletter and private Facebook group. Again, I'm Norman Bell. Thanks for joining me. Now let's get out there and live a hell yes life.